the next part is the record keeping. And I use a combination of a kind of notebooking, I call it portfolios.
Okay.
And commonplace books. So when you were talking about it's neat to see things happening at different times, at the same time in different places.
Yeah.
Well, I put together a book of centuries, and my book of centuries has the continents down.
Okay.
So there are separate threads all the way down.
Yeah, the 7 continents.
And you've got the countries across not the countries, the dates across the top.
Okay, all right.
So you find the continent the person lived in the time period, and you write them in on your timeline. But I had a timeline. The only place in the house I had was around the ceiling of my kitchen.
Okay.
Or my dining room. And that was back when we had a drop ceiling, and we decided to redo the kitchen. When we did, we took the drop ceiling out, and I didn't have a place for my timeline anymore.
No.
But I started looking at it and thinking, we're going to put timeline in a book. And a timeline in a book is actually better. I thought, how many people actually have the real estate in their home to put a timeline, take over a whole wall?
Yeah.
I don't have any wall space to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, and so I started saying, well, what's the benefit of a book? And then I realized the benefit of the book is when they enter it on that page, that grid page, the continent and the date, then they turn that page, and that page is done on cardstock, and it becomes an index page or a table of contents for that chapter. And they're putting a page about each person that they write in on the front. And they're putting them in...
plastic sheets?
No, they're just putting them in regular sheets. I looked at some that had places to draw pictures at the top and then writing on the bottom. And I thought, yuck, I don't like that. I want them to be able to do whatever they want that helps them learn. If they want to draw a picture and put it really small or put a thumbnail in and write a little fine print and have several on a page, fine. If they want to take a whole page and put maps in about where the guy lived and pictures about what he did, and they want to go crazy over the top, hey, that's their book. And that helps them remember. What they do with their hands and how they take it into their mind and put it down on paper is what they're going to remember.
Yeah.
And so that is the record keeping there. And when
cool.
we're going through a classic, we keep a commonplace book. When we're learning in math, we put the concept down. What's the concept, define it, and demonstrate it. When we're doing science, we do the same thing.
Okay.
We keep a book.
So in your notebook, then, you have a cardstock piece of paper
with the
book of centuries, and it only has maybe 100 years, depending on when it is or something.
Well, depending on the time period of history, because as you get closer and closer to now,
it's going to be 1 year,
10 years apart, 5 years apart, 2 years apart, and I even made it into the future to let my kids know that history begins now, and it goes back.
Oh, good.
But it will happen. Now is over now.
Yeah, that's true.
As soon as I said now is over.
That's true. Yeah.
And so I had to have it go into the future.
Okay, that's good.
And so that was.
So you have your cardstock, and you have the Book of Centuries on the top, like your table of contents, and then behind that is all your scientists, your mathematicians, your anything that you studied within that time period.
And it could be an event. It could be the Battle of Hastings. You could have been reading about William the Conqueror, and then you read about a specific event, or you're reading about King John and the Magna Carta. Well, the Magna Carta isn't a person.
No, it's a document.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, what is the Magna Carta? So you go off on this little rabbit trail. And so even though the lesson started with King John, and you may start thinking, well, maybe we'll cover Robin Hood next on the classics that we read, Anyway, it's a gateway.
Yeah.
It's a gateway to further knowledge. And
so I want to go back to this notebooks idea. So you have everything that you've studied with that timeline, and then you have the next time period, and then everything behind that, and then the next time period, and then everything behind that. And so do you feel that, like the next year, do you go back into that same time period and add more stuff into it?
Well, you're going to be adding all the
going?
time, and as it gets bigger, you're going to end up with a book for each time period.
Okay.
I have 4 time periods that we cover: ancient times, medieval times. Medieval times is the birth of Christianity through medieval times, and then the Age of Discovery, when they were ocean travel and everything, through the Foundations of Liberty, and then 1800 forward is the fullness of time.
Oh, I love it.
That we're in.
Yeah.
And so you might be, because we didn't know the musicians and we didn't know the artists to study really in Old Testament times. So we studied artists and musicians that did work about Old Testament times.
Oh, okay. Like Handel and yeah. Okay. Very good.
And the same thing with poets.
Okay.
We have a lot more knowledge of who the ancient poets were. You know, Virgil and Homer.
Yeah.
And of course the ones in the scriptures. You know,
yeah. So do you also study Psalms too with that, or a few of them?
Well, you're going to be studying David. As a poet. So you're going to cover that. Solomon, you're going to cover Proverbs, poems that were in Proverbs. And when you study Joel, you'll be studying scriptures, his very prophetic but very poetic writing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I love Joel.
So, anyway, and I did the same thing for Nations, and I call it a Book of Nations. And in that you do a page on each country or more.
And so then you have a title page with a
you have the continents tabbed across the top, and then each person will do their own differently. Some will do it alphabetically.
Oh, okay.
You know, some will do it by continent.
Yeah.
I like being able to find the ones on that continent really quick, so you put it across the top.
Okay.
On the Book of Centuries, I tabbed the 4 major time periods down the side, and then I put the dates across the top. Little tiny tabs up there. So I'm just going like this. Okay, that's the one I want. There.
Wow, that's interesting. I'd never thought about putting tabs at the top.
Oh, yeah.
I just never did. That's really great.
Just cut little tabs about this wide. You just cut a narrow strip of paper like that, and put it on the top all the way across, and you just space them.
Time.
Okay. We spend the first week
making the notebooks.
Yep. But it's a process, and they own it then.
Yes.
It's their own.
That's why I love notebook approach. I just so love to be able to handle it. And my kids love that. They go back years and years later. Well, remember this year?
Well, and I have composition books, my commonplace books on the shelf. And the commonplace books, when we're reading a classic, or like when we were reading about the creation, we went to Bruce R. McConkie's Sermons of the Restoration. Chapter 10 does a parallel of the Pearl of Great Price and the Bible.
Oh, cool.
Of the creation and the temple.
Okay.
And he says, this is what we know. This is what we know. So we got a big whiteboard out, and we drew it out. We say, what do we learn about day 1? What do we learn about day 2?
Awesome.
And so that goes into your book. You know? You can put that in your Book of Centuries, or you could put that in your
Nations?
Well, no.
That'd be something
else.
Well,
you can put it in your commonplace book.
Okay.
This is what I studied in Scripture Study today.
Oh, okay. So you have 3 notebooks basically then. You have the Book of Centuries, you have the Book of Nations, and you have a commonplace?
The commonplace books are one for math and science and you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And they're just composition books. I buy them when they're on sale at Target every August for 50 cents.
Awesome.
And well, when they mark them down, they're $25.
I know, they're so cheap.
I missed the sale, and I went the next week, first thing Monday morning, thinking, well, maybe they'll have a few left. They had a whole bunch left on the bottom. They had marked them down to $0.05 each this year.
No
so
way.
I bought myself a case.
Wow.
I only have one left at home.
Wow, that's awesome.
This will see me for a while. I don't think I'll have to buy next year.
So your commonplace notebooks are just the composition notebooks?
They're just composition books.
Okay, so you have one for math, one for science, and one for scriptures?
Or your classics, and when I'm reading my classics, there's quotes and things that really jump out to us. Oh, I really like that. Or, you know what? I don't agree with that. So you write it down, and you write down why you don't agree with it.
Oh, I love that.
And you write your reasoning behind, this is messed up.
Yeah.
I don't agree with this.
That's awesome.
And so it's not just the nuggets that you're taking away, but the nuggets that it brought out in your mind as you rebelled against what was said. My arguments on
Great.
paper. My arguments on paper.
Yeah.
But and it can be used for copy work for younger children.
Of course.
You say this is your quote book, and we're going to write down things that you like from what we read.
From what we read. I
so
like that.
It can be taught to every child at their own level to use the
of
composition books that way.
Yeah.
And they're cheap.
Yes, they are. Especially when you get them for a nickel.
Even at 50 cents.
Yeah,
my
that's
goodness.
a great deal. Yeah.
You could spend $1 or $2 on each child with the composition books.
To be notified of our newest YouTube videos, be sure to click the subscribe button here. Head over to our new website for the latest gifts and promotions. For more videos like this one, click this playlist here.